Ho ho ho! Welcome back to Real the Roost podcast, everyone. It's been a bit of a break. I was thinking about doing a World Cup one of those sort of daily ones, and in the end, I just couldn't be asked. I couldn't be asked. It's a bit about all the stuff around the World Cup at the beginning, which I'll be honest, I felt more acutely, I think, at the beginning, and now as things happen, as human beings are hypocritical. I think as the World Cup's gone on, a lot of the issues probably have been pressed to the back of my mind, and I'm just kind of enjoying the football, which, you know, I hold my hands up to that. I know that, but
I predicted that as well. I said that's how it would play out for most people, but including myself. I could feel that it would move away from the politics.
Yeah,
and into the actual football.
And genuinely speaking, and it wasn't even just. And I'm not digging out anybody that did do this or is doing this. I wasn't just making a big point of being like, well, I'm not going to enjoy this World Cup because of these political issues, and I'm not going to watch it out of principle. I still kind of, maybe paper thin or whatever, my sort of mentality still is that football is our game. You know, it's not FIFA's, it's not Qatar's. It's one of the few kind of lights in life for all of us. So much of our existence, our happiness, our everything is tethered to this sport. And it's selfish, I guess, but I didn't want to give that up. But I wasn't, genuinely speaking, and it is probably because of the politics. No, it is not probably. It is because of the politics. I wasn't that engaged with it in the group stages, the World Cup, being brutally honest. Normally, every single year, I'm watching every single match whenever it's on. And I just didn't do that this year. I watched the England games, the Argentina games, and some of the ones with the other big teams, Brazil, because they were playing nice football and things like that. But
I had everything on, mate.
Did you?
Yeah, I think I've.
You're a terrible person, then, Spooky.
I'm absolutely awful. I made sure I was wearing Nike trainers, and I was sat using my iPhone whilst I was watching the games.
Tweeting
as well.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, exactly. I love a bit of Musk, but that's another podcast in itself. It's football. You're right. It's this universal language, this connection, no matter where you are in the world. You know, you connect to it, and let's be honest, football is and has been corrupt on various levels. There's been contradictions with UEFA banging on about racism and then fining, East European clubs $10,000 or whatever the currency is, and there's a lot you can pick out, and even to the point of things that we live and breathe every day because of the Premier League. The doped up financial clubs basically, pay to win, and at a canter, Man City and Chelsea in the past have made it very easy for themselves in terms of gobbling up all the silverware. So there's lots of things that are wrong, and then it does bleed into real world economics and politics and cultural things as well, and it becomes really complicated. There's a lot of conversations around it, and there's a lot of good debating to be had, and there's a lot of things that are, I think, fundamentally racism hiding in plain sight, and weird things about, well, you got to respect the culture if you went there on holiday. It's not actually the same thing. A country like that, because of the human rights record and everything else, should we really be talking about the football being the bridge, to bridge the gap between politics, because on the one hand, football, keep politics out of football. On the other hand, it's being used to kind of make this connection to a country that is on the outside looking in. So can you see already, I'm getting a bit muddled here because there's so many little story arcs and narratives around this that lend into each other. So I'm going to stop waffling because this is the reason why I didn't talk about it in great depth, because what I tried to do on some of the pods I was recording was, I know there's a problem, I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm going to really awkwardly try and say something without saying something controversial, and you can't. You either have to go fully in with it or you don't. I think most of us tapped out because we knew we can't really change anything. How can we actually change anything in the moment? unless we go out there and protest, unless we do something else and lobby organisations and whatever. We can't. We're powerless, and it's as hypocritical as that might be. The reality of the situation is that we're powerless to most things. There's atrocious shit going on everywhere, all around the world, even on our doorstep. But what can we do?
We sit back, like Winston at the end of 1984, mate. We sit back, turn the World Cup on, as that gin-soaked tear trickles down our cheek, and we realise we love Big Brother.
I haven't read that for about 12 months. I need to read it again. I kind of got into the habit of reading it every couple of years.
It's brilliant. I know it's become that go-to for like people to take the picture, calling things Orwellian or whatever. But it's, if you actually kind of ignore all of the kind of the cynicism around its legacy and everything to this day and the way it's kind of used in popular culture, it's an absolutely blinding piece of work. It's genius.
It is amazing.
Who's stick to the football, mate?
What's going on?
Who are you backing to do it, mate? Because I mean, it's boring. Occam's razor. I can't look past France. I sort of say this during the groups, after the group stages.
There's something about them, yeah. They're canny. They have the experience. They've got a manager that's won it as a player and a manager. They're very. I don't want to say they're very Conte in style, but as good as England looked the other night against them, I think France were very comfortable with us having more of the ball and looking a little bit more aggressive, which we did in the second half. We played really well, but I think France are just this cool, calm team that just know they've been there before. They know what needs to be done. They only need to explode in pockets. They only need to puncture the game once or twice, and it's enough.
They feel a bit like Man City in the Premier League, don't they?
Yeah, they've just got that aura about them, and they're not. I wouldn't say they're the team that I've enjoyed watching the most in terms of football style. But sometimes, you bring it back to Tottenham. Sometimes there is methodology in it, and it does come down to winning the World Cup is probably the most important thing. People are going to remember you winning the World Cup, not that you were the best, most attractive team in the World Cup. I know that kind of it's not a philosophy that most of us agree with, which is what makes our relationship with Conte complicated at times. But I don't want him to win it. I'd rather see Argentina win it because of Messi, and it will make the Ronaldo fanboys cry for eternity, because there's just no way they'll ever get one over Messi, even though they will probably find a way. But Morocco...
Do you think that... I don't know if I can look past Croatia in that semi-final either. Maybe that's just me exercising a bit of self-preservation. I do have a bit of a dog in the fight. I do have a soft spot for Argentina, obviously. But I just think I think that Croatian team's obscene. I think and they're so overlooked, and by many people. They're one of those teams that now, when you're actually looking at them, you think, all right, they don't have a standout number 9, but other than that, their team's solid, man. Like that midfield is just,
and they've knocked on the door before, so that's another team that's come close, that kind of know what it might take to go, well, not a little bit closer, but actually do enough to actually win it.
They're hard blokes as well, right? To get a bit toxic about it, but they're just hard nuts. They're like granite mentality, kind of hard lads.
I was going to say that.
And I don't really want to play into these sort of Eastern European stereotypes either. This is about Croatia in isolation. They are just a tough they're tough cookies,
It comes back to this kind of culture thing. There's nothing wrong with saying what you said. You're not being, racist in any way, or just kind of swaggering along with stereotypes. The reality is that different cultures have different ways of looking at life. I remember Fabio Capello. I know this is a weird kind of tangent, but saying, so what if this player's had an affair? Who gives a shit? Like in Italy, no one bats an eyelid. It doesn't. Who gives a fuck? Someone's shagging someone else. Wow. Okay. Whatever. I think it was to do the John Terry stuff that kind of dominated the news over here, and it's like we're completely different. And as much as we have to say we think we can win it this year. No, we've changed. Other nations, other groups of players, they don't need to collectively tell us, oh, we think we're really good and we might win it. They just get the fuck on with it. And, And Croatia have that, again, they have an aura about them. And I think France and Croatia, when you look at both, I think the reason they don't attract, I mean, France attract the attention for obvious reasons, but the reason Croatia probably don't have the respect in the same way, even though they should, and maybe people that know about football above and beyond us probably do see it too, is that they are a very good team, and they're another team that perhaps this is, for this group of players, the last chance for them to leave their mark on world football. You know, in a way that's undeniable. You know, you win the World Cup, that's it. You're in the history books forever, basically. I mean, so it's interesting because I don't think Argentina have been convincing. But you never know.
But they've been getting the job done as well. You know, that's the other thing. Like that. I don't think that Dutch team were an easy kind of... You know, they were very well organised. They had a bit of something about them. I don't think they were one of the best teams in the tournament, but Van Gaal has that kind of habit of breeding a decent mentality, creating well-structured, organised teams. And the other thing I did think about the Dutch is that they had a few of those players who can easily go under the radar, but when Memphis Depay scores a 89th minute goal against you, you sort of think, oh shit, well, of course they've got Memphis Depay, and of course he can do that type of thing. Do you know what I mean? So I thought they might have that bit of an element about them, but funnily enough, it ended up being Wout Weghorst that was their surprise element. But it wasn't quite enough. I don't know, obviously Argentina, they do have Messi there, so he's always going to be that curveball, but there's just, I don't know, it sounds stupid to say, comparing like even Modric and Messi, but there's a certain solidity to Modric. There's a certain kind of basement to his play that I think you can rely upon that, dare I say, I'm not sure you can with an international level Messi. Like sometimes he can go a bit missing for Argentina. He hasn't this tournament.
I think this is it. There's that kind of the shadow of Maradona, and the fact that Maradona won Argentina the World Cup. Do you know what I mean? And the impact that he had. And it's a different age. It was a different time, and it's, you know, Messi is one of the greatest of all time. And it is strange that he's never won the World Cup for Argentina. But you're right. It's weird, this kind of Modric versus Messi thing as well. You kind of want to see both of them, just from a purist perspective. You want to see both of them kind of end up winning it. Obviously, it's not possible. I mean, we're forgetting Morocco in all this as well, because out of all the teams that are left, they're the ones that you could say have entertained the most, mainly because they're playing with this kind of expansive, expressive freedom.
And
this
ballsy,
kind of,
man, like properly ballsy.
Like it's not just, you know, you can have no pressure on you, but at the end of the day, you still have to back it up. You still need to have that mental strength and that depth and that quality, and they've got all of it in abundance.
They really do.
It's shocked me. I would.
Do you see that geezer's? I forget his name, but the geezer's header in the last one to beat Portugal.
Yeah,
and he actually, funnily enough, he broke the record. Now he jumped higher than Ronaldo. His goal against Sampdoria for Juventus, which there's a certain poetry to that, I feel. But yeah, it's amazing. And I think just on Modric quickly before we move on to Harry Kane, which, let's be honest, that's where this was going. Modric is, I mean, he's going to be, whether Croatia, we're talking about Croatia as well, all due respect, a country of a national population smaller than London. Whether or not Croatia win the World Cup, Luka Modric is going down for me as one of the best ever footballers. Like he's in that bracket for me with your Zidanes, your Cruyffs, your Ronaldinhos, those players just outside of that, like you say, that Pele, Maradona kind of legendary bracket.
Yeah,
they're still they're still legendary in their own right. That we're talking about Johan Cruyff, Platini, players like that. But Modric belongs in that company, right? But if he actually inspires, because he really is they've got a fantastic team, don't get me wrong, but he really is the engine, the driving force of this team. if they get it over the line, and as much as I say France are the Occam's razor, there is, like I say, there's, if forget the mentality and all this type of stuff, if we actually just look at them on the pitch, that midfield, I think France are not going to have fun with Croatia this time around. Like, I don't think they did the last time. If we do see a France-Croatia final again, you know? And if Modric does inspire, like, we're talking about, like, he's top 5 players of all time, surely. Like, that's a legendary footballer. Dare I say, maybe even up there with a Maradona or somebody. If he literally drives Croatia to win a World Cup, are we just overlooking him because he's not kind of got a sexy South American name or something like that?
Yeah,
you know?
I think that's probably it. It's because of the type of player he is. You know, people say, "Oh, he's very functional," but I think that's doing him a massive disservice.
Hugely, right?
He is hyper intelligent. He glides around the pitch. He knows where he needs to be. The whole assist to the assist thing. I know it was a bit of a meme at Tottenham, but he was that. He was that kind of the playmaker for the playmaker. You know, everything started from him, and to consistently do it at a club like Real Madrid for years, and still be doing it at club level and at international level, I think tells you everything. Because he doesn't fit the template, you know, the blueprint for what is like this kind of sexy, sort of, again, hyper-aggressive, forward, goal-scoring type of player. You know, if you remember when he went to Real Madrid, he was voted the worst signing in the league for that season. Because
it's madness,
the
isn't it?
Well, it's the mentality. This is, and I guess it. You know, we know who the best players of all time are, and I think most people wouldn't dispute the top 5 or 10 or even 20. There's so many that could fall into that top list. But I think with Modric, it's almost like the thinking man's all-time great. You know. Because if you compare him to Zidane did have a lot more box office about him. But again, it's because there's tick boxes, right, for what we think is important for those type of like worldy type players. Because is he not dynamic? Yeah, he's fucking dynamic. So what is it then? Is it because he's small? Is it because he doesn't score a lot of goals? It's just it's a weird thing. I think most of us can kind of stand back and say, look, you know, when you produce that quality of football for so long and win the trophies and never look phased, never look like you know you can even lose form for a long period of time, to do that for that amount of time, you just have to applaud the guy. And yet again, it's fitting. For different reasons, because arguably he's been in the shadow of Ronaldo and Messi for a long time. But again, you can look at the awards that both those two players have won. It always went to one of those two, and if it doesn't go to a Messi or a Ronaldo, it still goes to a forward, a striker. It kind of rarely. I know he's won a Ballon d'Or. He has won one, hasn't he?
Yep.
Modric, of course he has. But, you know, defenders don't win it. I mean, you have to probably go back a long time for maybe Beckenbauer. I don't know.
Did Maldini get one?
Maybe. But the fact that we don't know, and the fact that the last decade and a half has just been bang, 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 the same two people that have been winning it, more or less. It shows you where the emphasis is from a footballing perspective. You know, it's on the sexy rather than the kind of the quietly sexy, if that's a thing.
And he played for Tottenham Hotspur, mate. That's all we need to know, isn't it? Really.
He
did try and go on strike to force a move to Chelsea. We'll glaze over that bit, but still.
Prick. What a prick.
Gail Platt nonce. Mate, right. England have gone out, and this year it happened to be Tottenham Hotspur that were, again, the butt of the joke this time. More importantly, Harry Kane. I heard you talking about it on the Fighting Cock the other day. You're quite a big England fan. were you more sad about England going out, or did you feel bad for Kane? Because I, most of my sadness about it in the wake of it, I support England, right? I do. I like I said, I've got a soft spot for Argentina. I support England, but I was talking to my mate Charlie Braffman about it the other day, who has some Brazilian heritage, and was sort of commiserating with him. To me, like, international football is this was the sort of metaphor I used. It's like a nice dessert. If it's great. It's like dessert, basically, not nice dessert. It's good if it's nice, it's great, and you're going to enjoy it. But if you have a bad dessert, you're not really that bothered. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, whatever, we had it, it's fine. So I never get that gutted about. I mean, when England lost the Euros, I was over it in a couple of days. I'll never be over Tottenham's Champions League final. Do you know? The level for me is very different. So seeing Kane sky that penalty, and I did have a funny feeling. When he was going to take the second one, I did just sort of in the back of my mind think, "Oh, I don't know about this. I don't know about him taking 2 in one game against Lloris. It feels a bit much."
Yeah.
And it just feels unfair that, I mean, obviously, right, we're talking about football. There's bigger problems going on in the world. I understand this, right, before people come at me with cost of living crisis and stuff. I know Harry Kane as a human being is all right, but I couldn't help but have a lot of fucking sympathy for the lad. Whether he tried to engineer a move to Manchester City or not, he looked fucking distraught after that. In a way I don't think I've ever seen Harry Kane look. I've just found it very, very uncomfortable. I thought it was pretty miserable.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of conversation out the back of this now. Jermaine Genius, obviously, although it was recorded, he's come out to say now it was recorded a few months ago. It seems to be a lot of the sentiment that Jermaine Genius shared in that video about Harry Kane going missing in big games has been kind of propagated throughout Twitter and just the commentary, shall we say. He lacks the clutch gene, all this type of stuff. He's been our figurehead. He's been Tottenham's figurehead through a golden generation of Tottenham players. Probably the first golden generation we've had since, the 80s, which I don't remember, but from what I gather from other people, our first real kind of team where you thought we could win the league here. And we've got nothing over the line with him as our figurehead. Do you buy into any of this? Do you put any of the blame on Kane's shoulders?
Not. I mean, you could argue that it got to him, right, in that moment. Okay, so do great players not get got at in the moment? It's happened to Baggio. It's happened to several players. You can argue every golden generation England have had, it's got to them. We've literally had winners from the top teams in England, the teams that are winning the league titles and the Champions League and the FA Cups and the rest of it. And that group of players is not just one or two that are figureheads or leaders. It's a whole team of them, and they gave us fuck all. And in fact, arguably, never really felt connected to them because they were all a bunch of pricks, because they were all from Man United and Liverpool and Chelsea, and they were just, hateful people like Gerrard and Lampard. Sorry, guys. You felt this disconnection. Although in the moment, obviously, you backed England. I can remember every single time we got knocked out of a major tournament thinking, I thought this was us this year. I thought this was...
especially like that Ericsson team and stuff like that. Remember that?
It's and the reality is it's. I think it's very, very easy to just say, oh well, he's not good enough, and then not step back and say, well, okay, who else in the team is actually on his level? Who else? You can't. Scapegoating is something that everybody does in football, pre-internet and the rest of it. I think it's just amplified now with social media, because when he did miss the penalty, that's the first thing I thought of, which is ridiculous. The first thing I thought of was the abuse and the amount of kind of fighting I would have to do on Twitter. Like, why even do that? Why even log on? Really, it's something I should be debating with myself. But the point is that people would bring it back to him, and maybe it's because deep down everyone knows if he's as good as he is, and he is as good as he is, you don't score the amount of goals you do for Tottenham and England if you're not a good player. He's scoring goals against the same opposition everyone else gets to play against. He's a top footballer, and arguably, for me, if you really wanted to go deep into it, why did we concede that second French goal? I mean, that's where we lost the game. Obviously, you got a moment where Kane can just slot it in again, second penalty of the game, and it's like, he does that, and it's like with Harry Kane. He rarely misses, even though he's missed a few this season. And you just crack on with the rest of the game. Whatever happens after that, we'll never know now. That scenario has probably played out in another parallel universe, and there's a Jack and Spooky chatting about England set to play in the semi-final of the World Cup. But fuck those two, the pricks in that universe. We're stuck with the one where Kane now has to pick himself up and go again, and we're going to get over it really quickly. I think what you said is about the way you follow England and recover from it. I kind of I've always got sucked into it, and it's always in the tournament, in the moment. I really believe as strong as I do with Spurs, or maybe even a little bit stronger, because it is a tournament and it is winnable, kind of winnable theoretically. But I do recover really quickly from it, mainly because I've seen us go out so many times in dramatic circumstances. I am gutted. And I did selfishly think about Tottenham. I did selfishly think about the psychological impact on him. I did think about the abuse he was going to get. I did think about the fact that Kane has to try and do things at a higher level than anybody else because of this kind of bullshit narrative around him not being a big match player, not being great because he hasn't won any trophies, not being this. It's never put respect on his name. It's always like, well, he didn't play that well against France. I'm like, mate, he was fucking defending. He was in midfield. He was up front. Like, what are you that blind to hating Kane? Now, why does it bother you that much if he's not as good as you say he is? Why does it bother you that you need to go above and beyond?
But it's all tied into this. Like I've said it before, the memification of Tottenham's failures. Right, we've just become that team. The whole fucking football league singing Tottenham get battered everywhere they go for a fortnight. Just shit like that. That it's just one of those things. It is just a meme to deride Tottenham and everything that they do. And he's almost a very good personification of the club in the respect that he. We face a lot of adversity as a club. We're not kind of one of the fully moneyed elites in football, and the way we've kind of stood up to a lot of them over the past few years should be applauded way more than it is, but it just isn't. Fucking Newcastle at the moment are getting more plaudits than we've ever gotten. I mean, maybe 16-17, we were starting to get a bit of a everyone's second team vibe about them.
I'll tell you why though, Jack, in that moment, is because they realised fucking hell Spurs might win something. So I've got to align myself to I rate Tottenham. Gary Neville couldn't stop, he kept saying best footballing team in the country, and we were. Statistically and on the eye, we were the best team. And even in that moment, we couldn't win anything. But, there's, again, I know that's all it comes down to at the end of the day, but I've said this a few times. The standard of football is at such a high level, and it was even, it's high level now, but even at the time it was. And we watched, we lived, and belonged to one of the best Premier League sides there's been. But I have nothing to show for it. So, and that's only because the standard of the other teams is so, above and beyond what we were producing, like in terms of consistency, because of the money that they've got. The whole thing, this whole thing around, Kane scored hundreds of goals and they don't mean anything. That type of meme is, that triggers me. Like, genuinely, even though it shouldn't, and it's a very cheap kind of dig at Kane and at Tottenham and probably every single football club on the planet is never in a position to win anything or wins anything. You don't devalue a player because he hasn't won anything when he's producing the football that he's producing. Ashley Young has won a ton of shit. You know, there's lots of players that you can say have won Champions Leagues and league titles and whatever. They're never going to be remembered in the same way Kane is in terms of his output. But obviously for Kane, he wants to be able to look up at his wall and see more than football shirts and golden boots, which are great. You know, that's a great achievement in itself, and Player of the Year and the rest of it. But he wants to align himself to glory, to actual glory. And I think the World Cup, I mean, it's ironic, isn't it? I wrote a blog on my Patreon about how I wanted Kane to win the World Cup, not England. Kane to win the World Cup, and what that would mean, and how his legacy at that point, for eternity, you wouldn't be able to get away with it. Because if you're an England supporter and you support West Ham or Chelsea or whoever, or Arsenal, you know, you'd be celebrating England won the World Cup and therefore celebrating Kane.
He's etched into history, right? There's that picture, like you've got of Bobby Moore. Fucking hell, that escaped me. That's terrible. Bobby Moore holding kind of Jules Rimet up, right? You've got Harry Kane forever there, and whenever there's the what has he won, you've got the picture you respond to.
And you see, we can't have nice things, Jack, mate. The universe just doesn't script anything in our fucking favour. It's a conspiracy, I'm telling you.
Look, you know, I've tried to avoid this one for a while now because I've felt this way for a bit, but I'm going to go into it now. So, happy Christmas, everybody. I think my biggest issue with that now really is Conte or not. I think that sealed him leaving Tottenham, missing that goal. He will not want his legacy to be ended his career at Tottenham 1-0, missed the crucial penalty for England. Whether it's I tell you what, but where my head is at, I still firmly believe that Pep Guardiola isn't going to go away. He's exactly the type of player that Pep Guardiola will want. He knows that Kane isn't going to go and say, give me £1 million a week or whatever. Kane will happily go to Manchester City, play under Pep Guardiola, be a positive influence there, be able to fill in for them in numerous positions, whether they have Haaland and De Bruyne or not. A manager like Pep Guardiola, where he doesn't have to worry about a wage bill, is not going to say no to having a player like Harry Kane at a cut price or on a free to add into that squad of players. It's just that's where I see him ending up. To be honest, I don't see him going to Bayern. Can't see him leaving England. I really fucking hope he doesn't end up at Chelsea, but that's another bit of a worry for me. I've kind of joked about the fact that he could sell Campbell us. I mean, fuck me if he did. I would give up on football. Don't really want to explore that one too much more. But like I say, I think with that kick sailing over the bar like that final whistle going, I think that's sealed his Tottenham career for me.
I'm ready for that.
He might come back when he's 35. That's the thing. He might Sheringham it, right? He might come back for the thing. And I asked for some questions. Kidiaba Ponytail, he said he's put in, looking at his contractual situation, there's a half decent chance Kane leaves this summer. If that were to happen, how would you assess his legacy at Spurs? What do you reckon?
Well, he's gonna have that Greaves record, right?
You'd imagine.
So I mean, his legacy here is that he's possibly one of our greatest ever players. Now there is that gut-wrenching reality again that even though we can associate so many moments with him and all the goals that he scored and the way that he's performed for us in a white shirt and an assortment of weird away shirts, he hasn't got that crowning glory. I mean, something might happen this season, right? We might win the FA Cup. I mean, fucking hell, I've been saying that for 30 odd years. It almost feels like he needs that in as part of his legacy. Now, when I think of Ledley King and I think of Robbie Keane and I think of other players that I've enjoyed watching over the years, and I don't necessarily think back to the League Cup final against Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? I think that was a great day out, and the way that we smashed Arsenal in the semi-final, and then I don't. My opinion of these players isn't really based on that one day and that one lifting of the trophy, as glorious as it was, and so fucking happy to have been there, to have seen that. I mean, Zakora won a cup medal, a winner's medal, for fuck's sake. Do you know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that much for those players, and I'm not trying to have a dig at those players, but with Kane, because of how good he is, he deserves so much more. And Spurs did go knocking at the door, right, under Pochettino. We did have those moments. We got to a Champions League final, for fuck's sake.
It's mad, isn't it?
You know, and we were cursed in the first 30 seconds. So it's not like Spurs haven't put themselves in this position to solidify the way we felt about that Poch team and the way that we feel about Kane, and even with the misdemeanors and you know, his brother and the things that happen with Man City and the rest of it. You know, he's big enough. He's a big enough of a player for us to have got past that. I think most of us have. You know, it's a tricky one, mate. I want him to win something, but the way that it's going, I think no matter what he does, if he goes to City, he will probably win the league in his first season. Would it feel satisfying to him? Probably nowhere near in his heart, nowhere near the levels that it would mean if he won the same thing at Tottenham. But we know football. We know what the way football's kind of designed and the way that it works. You know, Kyle Walker, grafting, goes to City, wins the league in his first season. He's going to go, yeah, but he's going to feel like he's just joined a winning team, right? And maybe he's a play of Kane's talents and Walker's talents is deserving to play amongst elite players and to win things at a canter. So for Kane to do it, just so that he can say, I won this, and this, no doubt the meme will be, well, you had to go to Man City to win it. You know, the meme, the meme will just change. It will morph. It will evolve into something to develop. And at that point, we need to really stop talking about the memes, right? Because it's just ridiculous. If people are never going to rate Harry Kane, that's on them. I mean, deep down, when they're alone, they probably know that he's a fucking top player. My I guess question marks or mark around it is whether he, you know, would he leave the Premier League? Would he go to Germany? Would he go abroad somewhere to win something? Or do you think that's too detached? Because there's also the Shearer record potentially, which I get a feeling he would only be able to hit that Shearer record if he stays at Tottenham. I don't think he hits it if he goes to City. Just some weird.
I don't think it's guaranteed that he hits it either way. It's still a bit of a mountain, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still a way off. But I think at Spurs, he's likely to retain that 20-25 goals a season consistency, which will probably be enough if he keeps on playing. And he's a player that's preserving himself as well, right? He knows longevity. He knows he can play for another 5-6 years. But maybe not score as many goals. So
I just hope he's not really badly advised and ends up going to. And any of them would laugh at us for me saying this, but I hope he doesn't. I've got this weird feeling he ends up at Manchester United, that he gets badly advised and goes there, because I think during his career he's got just as much chance of winning the Premier League at Tottenham as he does at Manchester United, which is very minimal for either of them.
He has to go to City.
It can't be United. United is still, you know, come on. It's just
there's no guarantees at all. There's practically a guarantee at Manchester City. If you don't win it in your first season, you're likely to win it in your second. And Liverpool are going to go through some changes, no doubt. You know, if City buy Bellingham and sign Kane, I mean, what are we doing, mate, week to week? What are we podcasting about?
Well, it looks like Liverpool are in for Bellingham.
They're winning the League Cup.
Which, as much as I don't like Liverpool, I'm just saying, it's just how I feel in my gut. I'm kind of happier to see Bellingham go to Liverpool than I am to see him go to City, because I'm just tired of City stockpiling kind of all the talent. And I know Liverpool is a team we should be competing with, and I shouldn't be. My hot take on all this, mate, is I'm annoyed that after, what now? It's been 2 years of having the stadium open. We've been putting on NFL games, concerts, all this type of stuff. When does it start for us? Like, why aren't... I'm not saying he comes to us, but why aren't we there offering 100 mil for Bellingham? I know it sounds silly, but these are the type of players we need to be signing. Why aren't we doing that now? I don't get it. You know?
At some point, we have to, because I don't think you can compete if you don't. And with Newcastle doing what they're doing, what they're building it up to, Chelsea don't seem to stop spending even with the changes that have happened with their infrastructure and their owner. Unfortunately, it is about who spends the most is more likely to win, and it's you have to spend to get into the Champions League. Maybe something that works in our favour and everyone else's favour is that the Champions League. I know it might go to 5 places. It feels very competitive, and I think from one season to the next there might be some little swaps, there might be some little rotation in who gets to go to the Champions League. But if the very rich are sharing all the wealth, then it really is about cycles and having the right manager and momentum. It feels like it's going to be something that is shared. But the question is it going to be shared between 2 clubs, or is it going to be shared between 4 or 5? And Spurs need to start looking at that soon. And maybe, I don't know, maybe once the naming rights is finally finalised, we might be closer to maybe, I don't know, making a cheeky bid of 100 million. Saying, do you know what? We're going to send a statement out to the entire league now. Let all the players know. You don't have to go to City and sit on the bench. You don't have to go to Chelsea and sit on the bench. Come to Spurs, come to London, come to the Tottenham Stadium. This is what we're going to do. But we have to be seen to be making those aggressive moves. And obviously Spurs, I think that's where they want to be. But getting there, obviously, is a very slow brooding process for us. Doing all the right things financially, no doubt, but it's slow brooding. I want to be pretty much alive when we finally crack on and do something magnificent. So
we got some questions, and it feels relevant to us this at the moment. We got a question from Stuart Trier at STGT19. He says, January transfers, what areas are we going to target, and will we be able to do enough business to make Conte happy - satisfied? Where are you on Conte, mate? What are you feeling? Because it seems like Alistair Gold was talking again the other day about the contract being back on the table.
Yeah.
He's stuck this. People are calling it a Ted Lasso. So I haven't watched Ted Lasso, so I don't really fully. I've seen the belief thing stuck on walls, so I get what people are saying, but I don't know the full context. But he's stuck like a big bit of masking tape on a wall, and it's written on it something like, "When we win, we can believe in the process." Or have you seen it? This thing,
yeah, I
stuck
have.
up.
Yeah.
Do you get good feelings from him? Do you think he's staying? Because I had Dan Lowe on the last pod before the World Cup, and Dan Lowe's head's firmly on, he's gone this summer. He knows he's not going to be able to win the Premier League at Tottenham, so he's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I can see both sides of the argument. If you buy into what Conte has been like if you buy into it too heavily, then yeah, it's the easy thing would be he's going to walk away. But I don't know, man. Sometimes he says things that really resonate. That the connection he has with the players, the belief that he has. Maybe what Tottenham are offering him in the challenge is so outside his comfort zone that it's become his comfort zone. We don't know. We don't truly know. So therefore, we have to go on history, right? And history tells us, he's possibly more comfortable in Italy because of family reasons, and then whatever he does over there is probably a lot easier. He probably does look at the Premier League and think, if you're not spending hundreds of millions, if not $500 million, then you're not going to get anywhere near City, and it does feel like then what is the point? So there are those things that kind of hold me back from overcommitting. So I have to live in the moment. That's all I can do. And as much as the moment isn't super exciting, as much as the football has been methodical or over deliberate and a bit weird, and a lot of the emphasis has been on the second part of the season. He's holding back. I've said this a few times. Don't know whether I really believe it or not. But, we have to go for it now, no matter what, in the second half of the season. So Spurs, in the moment, have to always be seen as being progressive behind closed doors and for us. So Jan transfer window is generally one where you don't get the right business done, right? But we kind of did last time out. to the point where it influenced where we ended up, at the end of the season. Can we do the same in this window? Probably not, because and then the problem is that that benchmark is very much, in the forefront of our mind. So we're going to be expecting something, and we've Bentancur and Richarlison injured. We don't know for how long. I mean, probably Bentancur is going to be back just after the new year, and Richarlison. Again, it might be an exaggeration from the journos. He's got some scans. He could be out for a month. There's all these little things, and then there's the more known long-standing issues with right wing back and a central defender, and maybe something explosive from midfield and a backup for Kulusevski. Suddenly, what you're really looking at that point is a summer transfer window, right? And I think what this season has done so far for Conte, he now knows that with the adjustments we made in the last window, he now knows that the next set of adjustments can't just be adjustments. They need to be final products for those positions that are perceived as being key. And then we try and do something unreal next season. And fairy tales, they don't tend to happen for Tottenham, but maybe something within Conte has kind of sparked a fetish to see whether he can be the person that does the impossible. Everything else, I'm sure we're going to get stuck into as the season progresses, right? The style of football and Kane's psychological impact and other clubs, how they're going to react to the break. Are Arsenal going to collapse? Are they going to just crack on? What City going to do in Haaland? There's a lot that you cannot predict, and often I think we forget, and I don't know why we forget this, but Spurs, no matter what the variables are, no matter what is going on at the club or outside of the club, we find ourselves in the middle of it, in the thick of it, every fucking time. We're just attracted to it, like a fly to the light that's going to absolutely crispify it. And we still go towards the light, right? And we all
more like a fly to the dollop of dog shit, generally, mate. Like when it comes to Spurs, right?
Mate, I didn't want to say that. You hold back sometimes, but it's the fact that adrenaline, that want, that belief, that all the stuff that people go, oh, you happy clapper, that's irrelevant. It's not. That's the fundamental. That's the building blocks of fandom, right? Because if you don't believe, why do you go every week? What are you going there to really do? To have a drink and see your mates is probably a big part of it, but a lot of it is this belief that we can crack on. We are a team in a very healthy position. We always have world-class players. We're always knocking at the door. It's just that we're never allowed in, right? Because we're not on the fucking guest list, because we haven't, we don't earn enough money. I don't know where this analogy is going,
because we get battered everywhere we go, mate. That's why, and they know. Well, they don't want us in there causing trouble, and pick us up off the floor,
flipping tables.
On this topic, all killer no filler. At all kill no Phil, spelt like Phil PHIL.
I like it.
Yeah, it's decent, isn't it? Is Conte a good enough manager to be able to get the best out of a disappointed - dejected Kane and Son for the rest of the reason? This is not a Conte out agenda, by the way.
Mate, this is the thing I fear the most, because Son hasn't been on it at all.
No,
this season, right?
He looked all right in the World Cup, but still not himself.
Not Sonny. So what is it? Is it just a general dip?
Has time finally caught up with him?
It could, mate. There's so many things. We don't know. Now I don't believe he suddenly lost the spark, but confidence and momentum is so much of what allows you to kind of hit your stride. And the last few years, the two of them have been phenomenal. Why both haven't really dominated? I mean, I know why they haven't won Player of the Year awards, but when you've got the top striker and the most assists, and he doesn't win Player of the Year, it's mental. And Son has been on another level most of the time. The two of them have been incredible, and yet this season, whether it was because of the build up to the World Cup, something was missing and there wasn't synergy between the two. And I've said this a lot, even with the football and the way we've been playing, if those two were on fire, if those two were connecting, Spurs would be in a supreme position right now, right? Confidence wise as well, because you only need those two to do their job at 80%, and it's enough to beat most teams because of the pressure that's kind of lost with their quality at the top of the pitch. If we're getting those chances that Conte ball creates, right? You're clinical, you're ruthless, you put them away, and that then there's less pressure on the defence. Whereas because we're not putting away the chances, those deficiencies at the back become highlighted, and obviously in the long term we need to improve in many areas on the pitch. But it doesn't help when your two best players are not on it, and then you had Kulusevski injured and the rest of it. So to come back to whether Conte has the ability, yeah, fucking hell he does. I mean, the players that he's managed and the egos that he's managed, and with Kane, it is a case of, as much as it's going to hurt Kane, I think it will probably. I mean, I hope it will probably inspire him to just prove everybody that he is who he is, and he's going to get on with it. He's a very, I don't want to call him robotic. I think it's. Some players are naturally very emotional, and you can feed off that. Kane, I've always felt, holds a lot back, very diplomatic, doesn't perhaps show his emotions, and when he does, often he's people kind of laugh at the way that he tries to inspire in team talks and whatever. It's just him. It's just his mannerisms. It's just who he is as a person, right? Not everybody's this kind of like, come on, lads, and like Sonny, who's infinitely someone that has this energy around him that you want to just hug and kiss him, right? Because he's always smiling, and there's an affinity with him that perhaps isn't there with Kane, who's far more professional. But in the moment, when he's alone with Conte and his teammates, he's gonna have people around him, and I think we often forget about that. As much as maybe we've agreed that he might be thinking about his next move, I think he's still so proud of what he's achieving and what he's trying to achieve at Tottenham in the moment with a goal scoring record, that he will just crack on. And I think Conte won't have to do that much to get him back on form. I think our problems are probably in other areas of the pitch. Elevating them to the type of level that Kane can produce. The World Cup's done, man, and I feel that we now there's a bit of freedom mentally and physically for these players to just go out there and just give everything for the shirt.
Let's fucking hope so, mate. Let's have a look. I'm just having a look through the questions now. Okay, so this is a good one. AP. Obviously, everybody knows him, at Other Anthony, and Andrew Dunn, at Way Overdone. Both asked a similar question, which was basically, what impact is the World Cup going to have on our team? We've got so many first-team players out there, and we've still got some of our key first-team players out there right now. Do you feel a bit gypped by that? And what? Because I mean, I think I'll just say my sort of take on all this is that. Mm-hmm. And I was saying this to, I can't remember his name, a lad called Alan, I think it was Alan on Twitter, who was just saying like he was a bit annoyed about the fact that Spurs had so many sort of first teamers out there. It's meaning he can't enjoy the World Cup. And I was just kind of being like, look, at the end of the day, there's no point raging against things that you have no control over. We knew this was going to happen. We knew a lot of players were going to come back tired. It is what it is. So just try and enjoy the World Cup where you can. And in terms of like this impact, I think it has on our team. I mean, I do worry about Kane. I do, like you were sort of saying there about with his mentality and how he is quite robotic. He is, but I don't know. Like I say, just seeing him after the game, I think it hit differently. And there's that little bit of me. I know never doubt Harry Kane. Like we always say, never write off the Germans, never write off Harry Kane. But how many times can the lad go again, pick himself up?
But I think it's more. He was probably in disbelief with himself. He's probably absolutely tearing himself to pieces, trying to work out how How is that, why has that happened? Done it against Frankfurt, but then done it in the World Cup against France. Why? I'm built for this. This is the opportunity that I've been waiting for. This is a moment I've been waiting for, and he's done it for England before. Like people saying he doesn't do it for Spurs or England, and then they get forensic with example. Mate, just fuck off with all that. You're trying so hard to find a way to diminish what he's achieved as a footballer. So I do have faith in him, but I don't disagree with the fact that it's a lot for a team, for a squad, to take on in terms of the players coming back who are injured. But Bentancur and Richarlison had good World Cups. Romero's starting to find some
looks like a real Rolls Royce, doesn't he? We were starting to see that, but fucking hell, man.
So good. Yeah, it's so good. It's unfortunate he's got an injury, but hey, maybe a little bit of a refresh, a little bit of a reboot for him as well.
There with him though, there's something. It's bit Dembele, bit Modric, bit Berbatov almost. There's something just exciting about him and it's so funny again how it's like when him and Kulusevski were signed, it's like, well, Kulusevski's this kind of wild card who may or may not be good, and Bentancur's this kind of 6 out of 10 every game sort of player who's all right. And then obviously Kulusevski went on and was like the magic man for a while, and still is, don't get me wrong. And Bentancur was still seen as like, well, and we got Bentancur, who is this 6 out of 10 player. And now we're like, actually, fuck, no, he's more like a sort of 8 out of 10 kind of player every week who's just...
He's so important.
Oh,
he's so, and he's got levels to reach as well. I mean, he could really be such a massive player for Tottenham. But, just
Real Madrid.
Richarlison... eventually. Kulusevski, obviously... He's had some time. Basuma's had some time with Conte. I know those two went in the World Cup. So I'll get back to the World Cup players. Romero and Perisic have been decent out there, and I think their mentalities again. I know with Romero, obviously there's always a caveat with him and his injuries, but they come back to Spurs, and I think they hit the ground running. So I think we're all right. It's just Son and Kane, who are obviously the two players that have been out of sorts. And I don't mean Kane's been out of sorts all season. He's obviously been great for us in moments. But there's something that's been missing. And maybe that something has been that partnership with Son and that connection with Son. So there's still, if you look too deep into it, you can worry a lot about what's going to happen in the second part of the season, because it feels like there's a lot of obstacles in our way that are things that we're aware of, that things that need fixing. We kind of know how to fix most of them, because a lot of them are sign new players, but the right players. But it's the other bits and pieces that quickly need to be aligned into what Conte ultimately wants from the team, and that is, super efficiency. It's going to be interesting, man. I hate to say this, Boxing Day is going to be a weird game because it's the first game back. But we're all in the same boat, more or less. I mean, Spurs more than most. But everybody has had this break, and it feels like everybody needs a pre-season again, and that pre-season is probably the first couple of games over the festive period. So I think I will be fully tethered to everything once the North London derby comes around on the 15th now, I think, of January. I think that's when the season starts off again, and it's probably in one of the biggest games that we could wish for.
Well, this is funny here because Tom Foynes, everybody knows him by now. He was saying, "Are you ready for Spurs to come back, or would you have preferred a 2 or 3 year break?"
I saw that.
Yeah. I'm still not fully thinking about it yet, to be honest, while the World Cup's still actually on. And I know for a lot of people it's kind of ended with England going out, but I still hold an interest in seeing how Argentina do.
Yeah,
but I'm also, even if Argentina don't get through, I would be interested to see Modric do it as well. I would. I think that's kind of who I'm behind now, Argentina or Modric. Because I'm one of those melty, happy clapper, why do you still like them? They're not even our player type fans.
Yeah.
Those of us who dared to be happy when Gareth Bale scored a Champions League winner and stuff like that. Let's end it on a couple of Zeus, as everybody knows Zeus at Zeus 1882X, and Ollie Lister, obviously friend of your podcast and
Boo.
enemy of
I'm
many on Twitter. Who do you think will be our standout player in the second half of the season, and why is it Kulusevski? Can't say fairer than that, can you?
Yeah, you just end it on that, mate. It worries me again that we're looking to one player, but
he's obscene, though, isn't he? He's fucking obscene.
You took the word out of my mouth. I've said this again. Most of us can see it. He makes it look just unnaturally easy. It doesn't look like he's going to get past the player, and then he's past him. He's Bentancur, knowing that there are levels that he can reach in terms of kind of midfield majesty. Kulusevski could really be a world class player.
I'm like player. Bale level excited about him.
Yeah.
You know,
and what we need to get right is just that balance with Tottenham. Like, who lines up where up front? It's a good problem to have. It's not like a conundrum that's going to hold us back. We just need to get that balance right. And I think, again, the sheer quality that we have there for the moment, because obviously Kane and Son have their own narratives to play out. It's enough to do damage in the Premier League. It's enough to get us in that top four, and it just feels like the second half of the season, you got to release him, man. Release the Kraken. Just let him be rampant in those positions up top, because it will just give us so much opportunity to bury teams in the first half, nice and early, is what obviously I'm referring to, not second half, last 20 minutes. But yeah, Kulusevski, definitely. I think Bentancur, no doubt. We've got loads of players, mate, that can be key, right? Kane should be key. Son should be key. But it just feels like they won't be at the moment. Whereas Kulusevski, I don't think he's anchored to anything negative right now. So I think he's more free to go out and do a job for us.
He's just in that sweet spot of kind of... He's got that kind of youthful ego about him as well, where he's like, "Fuck you, I'm the shit," and that's kind of where you want your players.
So
to be.
Articulate,
like where
and so self-aware.
Yeah,
do you know what I'm saying?
And I kind of feel that's where Kane was until the kind of the horrors of the world caught up with him a bit as he's gotten older, as they tend to. But I'm not saying Kulusevski's our best player, but to me he's our most exciting player. I think Harry Kane is without a shadow of a doubt Tottenham's best player, but Kulusevski, there's an extra level of magic about him, right? And I still think there's a level of whenever we play another team in a big game, Kulusevski's never part of the kind of commentary package. He's never the one that the other players are talking about. It's still Kane and Son, and I think we can use that to our favour a lot still going into this sort of second half of the season. And we need to, mate. We need to, because it's going to be a slog. I know we're in the top four now. We've got to finish in the top four. That is, if we're talking about Antonio Conte staying at this football club, that is the minimum level of achievement, which even then I'm not 100% sure he stays or not. I don't know. I'm not second guessing sort of Antonio Conte anymore. I don't know the bloke. I don't know where his head's at or anything like that. But it's going to take a monumental team effort this second half of the season, I think, as it did last year. But I do back us to do it, because I do think we've got enough quality, and I do think we're a team that's, Manchester United, they've got new players in there. They've got some, Casemiro, Anthony, got exciting players in there, but they're still a fairly fresh unit under Ten Hag. They've come for a few years of kind of not knowing what the fuck's going on. Newcastle are obviously looking good, but I expect them to probably fall off a bit. Chelsea, again, a bit of an unknown. I just think still, it's a blessing and a curse for Spurs. We've got this kind of core unit that we tend to bemoan, that we say, we don't win stuff because we've still got this core unit that's failed under Pochettino and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But for the same part, I don't think we give enough credit to the fact that that's a core unit that still scrapes us into the top four. that still always has us in the conversation in the Champions League.
Exactly.
Getting through the group stages.
Exactly.
It's a team that knows how to do it. You know, as we were talking about Croatia earlier in the World Cup, they're a team that knows how to do it. I think Tottenham do occupy a kind of similar place like that in terms of like, even when all hope... Last season is a prime example of this. All hope is gone. The boys can still suddenly be like, fuck it, right, okay, come on, let's give our heads a wobble and just get this done. We know what needs to be done. And we still can do that, you know? So I do expect us to get into the top 4. And I've just got a funny feeling again. I've got a funny feeling I did after this group stage. I've got a funny feeling we're potentially going to do something special in the Champions League again this year. So
wow. I
don't
hope
know.
so, because the alternative is that Giroud knocks us out of the World Cup and the Champions League.
And Merry Christmas to you too, Spooky.